What's up, bro? How are you?
What's up, man? Doing pretty good. Doing pretty
Chilling,
good.
chilling.
Yeah,
It's
man.
good to
Look at
see
that
you.
beard.
I've been
Yeah.
growing this for 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Welcome.
When I met you, you were like super clean shaven and
Yep.
like tight. I like it, man. The
Thank
the
you.
beard is something that sets us men apart, right?
It's true. It's true. I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying that. I'm kind of proud of it because there was a time where I didn't think I could grow one at all.
Heck yeah,
Um,
man.
but welcome to the show. Welcome
Thank
everybody
you.
who's tuning in. Tonight we have Ian with us. He is the founder, owner, and the strongest individual at Strong Hand Fitness. And I really appreciate you hopping on, bro. I know you and we connected during some pretty tough times during the
Yeah,
aftermath of Hurricane Helene, and you were generous enough to open the building and basically shift everything from having a space where people can come work out to get better into a space where people can come and get the necessities. So that was a pretty
right.
tough time. I'm
Yeah.
sure you remember it vividly.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm still kind of running into some of the side effects of that. Yeah, man, we went from a gym to a logistical distribution center
Yeah,
overnight.
yeah. Command center and
So
all.
yeah, September 27th,
Hmm.
2024, Hurricane Helene hit us, and it was pretty scary, but we were pretty fortunate here in Henderson County. I know we got a handful of deaths, nothing compared to the other parts of Western North Carolina into Virginia, Tennessee, and so we had some flooding stuff. I couldn't get to the gym until
Hmm.
Monday.
Hmm.
Or no, I got there Sunday.
Yeah,
We were able to drive around and get to it on Sunday, but Friday, Saturday, it was a no go.
yeah,
Every access point was flooded to get to the gym, and I tried, just couldn't get
yeah.
there. The neighborhood beside us got flooded. A bunch of
Really bad.
houses,
Yeah,
yeah, a bunch of houses were underwater, cars, just unprecedented amount of water,
yeah.
something we've never seen before. And, I got to give the credit to a friend of ours, Jessica Lee, that
Hmm.
kind of, we wanted to do something and just didn't know what that meant, what
Hmm.
that looked like. And she was like, hey, can I come by Monday morning? I know you're opening back up, even though we didn't have any power. I was like,
Right.
look, if we can roll the doors up and the sun's shining, I want y'all to be able to come in and get some
Yeah,
workouts in.
yeah,
And we had a battery powered speaker that we used to listen to music so that people could still jam and get their
yeah,
workout on. And so she was like, we're going to start collecting supplies and sending it out. I was like, heck yeah, let's do this.
yeah. That's cool.
And so that kind of got the ball rolling there. I put it out on social media,
Hmm.
and fortunate enough that we've got a decent amount of followers,
Hmm.
and everybody just started jumping too. And we got our first load that night, Monday night, of
Yeah, that's
supplies out
cool.
of Charlotte, Concord area.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty dope.
it was like, oh, okay, this is serious. And so, the next day we set tents up out in the front parking
Hmm.
area because it's the only paved part of our parking lot.
Hmm.
And we had tents up and we put signs out and we're like, yeah, this is like a cool thing. We're having fun, handing stuff out to people, talking to people that are hurting.
Hmm.
Um, and then we got our first tractor trailer load, and that was like, okay, we can't keep hauling this in and out. So then we just everything stayed inside the gym. We opened up the
Hmm.
garage door and shifted. It really just came down to like, how are you going to shift and evolve as things progress,
Right,
especially since we didn't know what we were doing.
right,
And
right.
so, you came around and started just hammering out, getting things everywhere. We're like, all right, Castro's our man. He's got his he's got his sweet Dodge truck, and he's running around with his baby in his baby seat.
Delivering stuff. You remember the MapQuest directions that you guys would print
Yeah,
out?
yeah. Well, we had a period of time where we couldn't get any cell signal.
Yeah.
All the cell towers were out for days, and then they would come in, it was spotty, they would go back out, because they were, I think they ran off of diesel generators, and
Hmm.
no one could get to the generators to refill them.
Yeah.
So it was the wildest thing losing cell signal in 2024,
Yeah. Yeah. It
in
was
around
insane.
here, and that made things really difficult. So we started, you provided the Starlink for us that was able to really get us up and going again.
Yeah.
And I knew that, you know, people might be going places that don't have any cell signal, places they've
Hmm.
never been before, and
Hmm.
they might run into a tree in the middle of the road or flooding.
Hmm.
So I'm going to print out the best route, and we used Google Maps, which was pretty on point for getting people to these different locations. And we were getting in, you know, hey, we need it here in Swannanoa, we need it here in Marshall. Shoot, we even sent stuff out to Virginia, right there at the border, North
That's
Carolina and
cool.
Virginia.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty wild time.
It
And
really was.
I could not have done it without the help of people like you, James, Ashton,
Yeah.
and
Ashton
that
was
core
running
group.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah, she was a beast. Yeah,
She is.
for sure. Um, but yeah, it was an incredible time. It was incredible to see our community come together and fight for everybody that they know or don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it was really cool. And one of the things that I enjoyed the most is um seeing that even though a lot of us didn't know each other, we all had that drive to serve and
yeah,
to step up. And maybe we just didn't want to sit around in the house and think about what was going on. Because I know that was a
yeah,
part of it for me. And I know that for me, working out and fitness really helps my mental health. And if
yeah.
I don't have that physical outlet, things get a little strange up top. They get a little chaotic and hectic. And it's
Hmm.
something about pushing and pulling and sweating that allow. I mean, I read something that where when we exert ourselves physically, our muscles produce or release these hormones, these neurotransmitters that kind of regulate our emotions and whatnot.
Yep.
And I don't know the science behind it. I don't know if that's true. I just know that for me, it works. And it
Yeah.
was cool that's when you guys kind of became my tribe. And
Hmm.
I know that you guys are expanding into a huge space, and I know your mission to make Hendersonville fitter than ever, and we'll get into that later. Right now, I kind of want to give the people that are listening and watching this a little bit of your backstory because
Okay.
in the moment, you and everybody else that jumped in to help seemed really resilient. There
Mm.
wasn't really a sense of desperation around the gym. Everything was okay, they seem horrible, but we're still alive. We have the means to help out those who are stuck and trapped. And we had some really tough times. I remember one of the most difficult things to do was we went up to Avery County to deliver some body bags and then
Yeah.
coordinate to get some reefer trucks up there because they were actually digging people out of the mud and they had gone
Hmm.
into like the recovery phase instead of the rescue phase. So, and we'll get into that a little bit later as well. But for now, like if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your story and how some of that resilience was built.
Yeah. So my backstory, I was born and raised here in Hendersonville, and I was born to a military family.
Mhm.
My grandfather was in the Marines.
Mhm.
My great uncle was in the Navy. He was actually on a submarine during World War II.
That's cool
Uh,
and
yeah,
scary.
is well, what's scary too is he's one of the submarines that was depth charged and still survived.
Damn.
Depth, yeah. If the listeners don't know anything about depth charges, it's um, they don't actually blow up the submarine.
Mhm.
They blow up beside the submarine, and it's in the expansion, and then followed by the contraction. Because you got to think submarines are built to hold pressure from the outside in.
Right.
They're not built to hold pressure from inside out.
Mhm.
So the depth charges causes the cavitation, and when the water, so you get this big gas bubble that forms beside the sub. When it
Mhm.
collapses, it pulls on that submarine external frame,
Oh. Yeah.
and that's how it undoes the submarine and ultimately leads to it sinking
Yeah.
after it's
That's
already
crazy.
sunk.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's already sunk. But
Yeah.
I was taken to my great uncle, even though I had huge amounts of respect for my grandfather.
Mhm.
I think my great uncle had an influence on me going into the Navy,
Mhm.
um, and and me not wanting to run had influence on me not going in the Marines.
I mean, you're a big dude. You're like
Yeah,
6'5" or something, so
well, I'm 6'2".
oh, okay. You
I'm
look a lot taller.
320. I'm like
Yeah.
320 right now.
Yeah.
I was not that heavy when I went in, but I was still a pretty decent sized guy. I was
Yeah.
over 200 pounds in ninth grade.
Mhm.
Just grew fast, grew big. But you know, uh, ultimately, my backstory is a decent amount of trauma.
Mhm.
My mother passed away from cancer when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
My dad remarried. And then we had a household that was very chaotic, a lot of fighting.
Mhm.
I remember times where I was in my bedroom, um, trying to crawl through the wall to get away from my parents fighting.
Yeah.
And there was some physical abuse, nothing like some other people experience,
Yeah.
but it was enough that you know we were scared, so
Yeah.
we acted right. We were
Yeah.
scared into
Yeah.
submission, right?
Yeah.
um and so I will tell you that made boot camp very easy.
I bet it
boot,
did.
boot camp was it was Navy boot camp, so all you Marines, Army.
Bro, I wasn't gonna
Shut
say
up,
anything.
shut
Don't,
up.
don't do it.
I know Paris Island has horse-sized sand fleas and
It's true, and they
uh,
get in your ears and eat your brain.
yeah.
It's true.
But it's still boot camp. It's still
Yeah.
meant to be difficult, and
Right.
I found it pretty easy. Um, and I'd already been physically active. I started working out in middle school.
Mhm.
Um, I think I was benching 135 plus in middle school.
That's cool.
And then I got up to I didn't get crazy big with bench. I had really
Hmm.
big, strong shoulders, which
Hmm.
carried over pretty well into powerlifting. But I was shoulder pressing, and I think as a sophomore, what the seniors were shoulder pressing
That's dope.
for same reps, same sets,
Hmm.
and the coach, who you actually kind of remind me of, like how he looked and how you look.
Yeah.
But he's a little more jacked than you are. Sorry.
Oh, shots fired. Okay.
uh, Coach Chappell, which most of the people that are around here are that are been here for a long time are familiar with him. He's a former NFL football player,
That's
and
cool.
he was the coach at the time
Hmm.
for football. And every year he's like, McKay, when are you gonna come join the football team?
Yeah.
And
It's only a matter of time.
well, I never did. So
Really?
yeah, so I told you my parents were pretty strict,
That's strict, yeah.
or I kind of alluded to that.
Yeah.
I had been diagnosed with asthma as a
Hmm.
kid,
Hmm.
which I did lie about that on my entry into the military. I did not tell them. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that it was real.
Yeah.
Every time I took my inhaler, I felt
Hmm.
worse,
Okay.
and I felt fine without the inhaler. And I was
Gotcha.
pretty active. I was, always in the woods, working hard outside.
Hmm.
My dad created a lot of unnecessary work for us. For instance, there was times where we were digging stumps out of the ground with a shovel, um, and so we had to get every bit of the stump and
Hmm.
roots dug
Yeah,
out
that's
of the ground
crazy. With a shovel.
with a shovel. Yeah, at least we had a shovel. I mean, if we had complained about that, my dad like, I could tell you to do it with your hands. You know.
Damn. That's pretty
um,
brutal.
yeah. And we got spanked by a well, it was a 1x4,
Yeah.
but
Still
a plank
hurts.
of plank of wood
Yeah.
by my dad was 275, 280, 300 plus.
Yeah, big dude.
So it had a lot of power behind it.
Yeah.
Anyways, what I was on a tangent there,
No, you were
but
saying that's why you never joined the football team.
yeah. So
The
my
asthma diagnosis.
right. So my dad was like, if you don't take your inhaler, you can't play football.
Mm,
And I was not smart enough or too scared or whatever to just fake it
yeah.
and just next to
Mm,
my body and just not take it.
yeah.
Um, I really like I had no way like they could see right through anything that I if I lied to them I'd just see right through it. So
Yeah.
I probably couldn't have pulled it off.
Yeah.
So I was just hard headed like I am now, and was just like I'm not taking it because
Yeah.
it makes me feel like crap. They're like you're not
Yeah.
playing football. So you know, asthma is actually a factor that will not, they won't let you get in the military
That's right.
if you have asthma. So I was sweating bullets going in the Navy, going
Hmm.
through that process. They x-rayed my chest. I had no signs of asthma. I was let in.
That's
So
cool.
that's why I think it was kind of
A
I don't know,
misdiagnosis.
1990s misdiagnosis by a family doctor,
Yeah. Yeah.
I had some asthmatic reactions to most likely was seasonal
Mm,
allergies
yeah.
and also being just out of shape.
Yeah.
So, as a kid, I didn't exercise much. I didn't, we worked outside and I played in the woods, which I guess was a lot of exercise, but
Hmm.
I grew fast and I like to eat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
if I was bigger than everybody else in my class, always,
Hmm.
and so I think I was just out of shape for my size and
Gotcha.
age, and so that created some like asthmatic type responses,
Hmm.
and just having the Navy X-ray me and say that it, have no issues with my lungs,
Right. That's good.
you know, I was like, okay, I guess I didn't have it, but
When you
anyways.
were when you were going into the Navy, I'm sorry, I got to ask this question. When you were going into the Navy as a young kid who was active but didn't necessarily like do a lot of running or anything like that, did you ever envision yourself owning a gym?
No, I didn't know what I wanted to do. In high school, I had graphic designer as a thought process. I had like CSI type, like uh, death investigation
Mhm.
type of thing. I was very interested in stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I had the Navy reach out to me. And so it was like, hey, you scored really good on your ASVAB, which was like, I didn't do that great, but it
Mhm.
was decent enough. And the first time I took it, I got a 75,
Pretty
which
good.
was enough, to open their eyeballs.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
you only
had
need a
to,
26 to get in the Army, so a 75 is like, I'm serious. When I was going
yeah,
in, because I got a
yeah,
72, I think, but you only
yeah.
needed like a 26 to get in the
Oh
in the
man,
Army. So
this is low,
and that might answer some
low.
questions about some people,
Yeah. Well, I tell you, there were some people in the Navy that I swear they cheated on their as they ain't they just like how did
Yeah,
you get in the military?
yeah,
Jeez. But
yeah.
anyways, I was and then I was like, I went through the nuclear program, which is like the smartest
That's
of
cool.
smarts.
Right.
And I was definitely at the bottom of the class for the smartest of the
You
smarts.
don't have to do that. You don't have to be that humble.
No, I really was. I wasn't the last one, but I was close.
Okay, okay,
Um,
got you.
but I went in and there was people that I worked with that weren't nukes that didn't go through that program, and they were light years ahead of me in their
Yeah.
ability to understand mechanical and electrical systems.
Mm,
I took a path that sounded like the right path for me, and obviously the way I believe in things, every path we choose is the right path for us, even if we don't stay on it long, or
right.
if it's a short period of time, every door that opens up is the right door.
Mhm.
As weird as it sounds, like you don't want to answer every door, but I think in our life, doors that are closed for a reason. Um, and every door that's open is open for a reason, and it's either going
Yeah.
to be your path or a learning lesson.
Agreed.
Um,
Agreed.
so I joined the Navy as a nuclear, well, to go into nuclear propulsion,
Yeah.
and went through boot camp in Chicago, Illinois. Illinois. I always say that, Illinois. And then got flown down to Goose Creek, South Carolina, which
Mhm.
is right outside of Charleston. And there I did my A school, and then I did my power school, and then prototype. And back when I was going through it, they do just about everything they can to
Mhm.
kick you out through the whole
Really?
process. So they're mentally trying to fatigue you. Not really physically. You still had to do PRT
Mhm.
twice a year, and you still had to exercise
Yeah.
and work out. But yeah, definitely mentally trying to. They don't want a mentally weak person to get involved with a reactor and propulsion and electrical
Yeah.
generation,
Yeah. Probably for good
um,
reason.
for good reason. It's funny. I just, well, the circumstances aren't funny, but someone that I served with passed away recently.
Damn,
Went
I'm
out to
sorry, bro.
California, and I was talking to some of the guys out there, and actually, no, this wasn't a conversation out there, but it was after, and it was because of this.
Mhm.
But a guy I served with that went through power school and nuclear school, he was telling me that now they're actually, they don't kick people out.
Hmm.
They just roll you back until you pass. And that sounds way more horrible than just kicking me out if I suck. Because I I don't ever want to do that shit again. That was
Right.
horrible.
Right.
I hated, I liked the theory of nuclear power, but
Yeah.
it was the program itself is like I think it's like 50 something credits shy of a bachelor's in nuclear engineering,
That's cool.
done in the matter of a year and a half. So it's a very
That's
fast
intense.
paced course. There's 6 or 3 months of A school, 6 months, 6 to 8 months of power school, and then the same for prototype. And
Right.
power school is 8 hours of class time.
Mhm.
And then if you're like me and you're dumb, you had 4 hours of mandatory studying every day. So what I would do, this is how I structured it, and this was honestly probably, I wasn't in the best shape of my life, but I was pretty damn close,
Mhm.
as far as muscularity and just how I felt about the gym was,
Mhm.
I was 18 years old, I felt unstoppable.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I
Been there.
I was trying creatine for the first time. So my
Couldn't tell you shit.
my muscles were full.
Yeah.
But I would do, 8 hours of school, and
Mhm.
then I would go work out, take a shower, eat at the mess hall, and then go do my 4 hours of studying,
Mhm.
mandatory studying.
Right.
And it was bad. I had, so if you fell asleep in class, you had to be stood up at the podium behind the class. I actually had permanent seating, assigned seating at the
Seating.
podium.
Yeah.
Yeah, permanent assigned seating at the podium. Because I was falling asleep so much. It was bad. I swear, I this is crazy. You remember Hydroxycut?
Yeah, of course.
So it got banned in the military, right? Because it
I didn't
had
know that.
meth, and it had basically a form of methamphetamines in it. um,
Bro, I
but
was taking hydroxycut in Iraq.
yeah,
Like,
right. Well, people were dying in those
yeah,
places because
that's right. Yeah.
they were taking hydroxycut. They weren't drinking enough water. They were
Hmm.
drinking beer all night, and then
And
they were
energy
going do
drinks.
and then
Yeah.
they did a PRT or some sort of PT in the morning
Hmm.
and died.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So they, of course, they just blamed it all on the hydroxycut, not
Of
their
course.
lack of taking care of their bodies.
Right.
Um, but I'm telling you, when I was doing hydroxycut, I had my best grades ever. I was score. I
Yeah.
was. I
Focused.
was like 90 something percentile in nuclear power, um, uh, what was it? Nuclear theory, which is
Hmm.
probably the hardest part because it's the theory of how nuclear reactions work.
Hmm.
And there's all these different types of reactions that can happen, and the
Yeah.
sub the reactions that happen after that, all the gamma rays and beta rays and stuff that emit from the initial, right? So I
Yeah.
was and then they banned it and my grades plummeted.
Oh,
It
dang.
was the craziest thing. I was and then part of what I was telling you, they try to kick you out. So my first test, I failed a test, and my chief pulled me in, and my brother was overseas at the time, and they had found that out somehow. But my chief, he stood me at attention, and he was like, McKay, he's like, how do you think your brother feels serving his country overseas while you're here failing tests and not serving your country the way you're supposed to?
They know where to hit
And
you.
yeah. And I was like, now I think back, like, if you just give me my hydroxycut back, I'll be fine.
Yeah. But you didn't tell him that.
No, and I didn't even think about. I didn't know that was. I didn't see the cause
Yeah.
and effect of
Yeah.
hydroxycut on and off
Yeah.
until I got out of that situation and realized, like, oh crap, I was able to focus, stay awake in class.
Mhm.
Um, but I was doing, so another crazy part about it was you got your 8 hours Monday through Friday,
Mhm.
plus your 4 hours evening times, and then there was mandatory, depending on how bad your grades were, to add more time up to, like, I think I had 28 fours is what it was called. So mandatory 4 hours every day after class, and then I had to get 28 hours of study time over the weekend.
Oh man.
And yeah, so
Is that in a
that's where I
month or in
was
a weekend?
in a weekend.
28 hours.
Yeah. No,
I was gonna
no.
say that's insane.
I had so okay. The 4 hours throughout the week
Hmm.
was added into that. So
Okay. Okay.
so so that was 20 hours,
So
and
four
then
hours
I had
Saturday and Sunday also to
I
make
had to get it.
28.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
I
I
was gonna
think there
say,
was there was one person that got 32s, I think, and so he had to get 32 hours each week
yeah,
of
that's tough.
studying. Yeah. And then there was a guy that he was my roommate for a while, and I mean, I liked him, but I hated him too. He never studied. He always played WoW, World
Hmm.
of Warcraft,
Hmm.
on his computer, and he would ace every single test.
Damn.
And it was on
I can
a
see why you
four.
hated him.
It was on a 4 point. It was on a 4 point grading scale,
Hmm.
and he would get four O's every single test. And I'm
That's
like,
impressive.
and they're essay style answers. So every
Hmm.
question you have to answer with an essay.
Mm.
And he was getting four O's. And he was able to capture and regurgitate perfectly everything.
That's insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty
I would have
cool.
liked to know how he was as an operator.
Right.
Because I was actually a really good operator. And I feel like people that were in that level of regurgitation, I wonder if he was a good operator or if he
Right.
was a shitty operator.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he's a good dude. I'm sure he was good at what he was doing. He's probably an admiral now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Maybe.
so but yeah, I got, qualified um,
Hmm.
through prototype down in Charleston or down in Goose Creek, same place.
Okay.
Um, and then I got put to my first ship on the Eisenhower.
Hmm.
And it's a bad ship when they hand out orders to everybody, and I'm like, oh, I got the Eisenhower. They're like, oh, sorry, that sucks.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
they call that the Alcatraz.
The
Um,
Alcatraz.
the Alcatraz.
You were
Uh,
on a floating prison.
oh, I was. I did 4.5 years and during that 4.5 years, we had an
Hmm.
ambitious captain. He wanted to pick up admiral, so we
Right.
did more sea time than almost any other carrier had
Hmm.
done in the period of time. So out of that 4.5 years, where we had two shipyards, where it was mandatory the ship was in the shipyard,
Right.
we still we did 3.5 total years of sea time
Damn, out of 4.5 years.
out of 4.5 years. So there was a year that we were in port, and it's give or take probably a few days or a few weeks. Um, but yeah, we were going. So you go to do deployment.
Right.
First deployment was 5.5 months long, which was pretty
Hmm.
short. And then the second one was 7 months long.
Right.
And when you come back from deployment, you're not back. You still have to go back out to sea and do workups and
Hmm.
qualifying, and you got to
Hmm.
qualify all the air wing. This guy was so zealous um, to pick up Admiral. We had a fella that was assigned to our ship. I don't think he was on the air wing. So just to real quick, you got a carrier, you get assigned to a carrier if you're dealing with jets and helicopters and air wing.
Right.
Some people get put with air wings, and then air wings get assigned with ships. So
Okay.
wherever your air wing gets assigned, you go on that ship to qualify and deployment only, and
Mhm.
no other out to sea ventures.
Gotcha.
Um, I think this guy was actually attached to our ship. Um,
Hmm.
he
And the
was
Eisenhower was a carrier.
it was a carrier,
Right.
yeah. So this captain was so he wanted to become admiral so bad. This fella was what you would he was the signaler for the shooter.
Hmm.
You know, they had all their special
Yeah. Yeah. Their own
sign
language.
language up there.
Yeah.
He made a motion that was similar but wasn't to the T what was supposed to be used to shoot the jet. And the shooter who's in this like capsule that's sub flight deck level, but has like a almost like a Star Wars style like dome
Hmm.
looking thing. It's pretty cool looking. That's where the shooter sits, and the shooter is one that actually launches the jet.
Right.
So engages the catapult system to send the jet off. And this guy was still standing up, and it took his head off.
Oh
Um,
my God.
and we were qualifying another flight another air wing that was not our air wing.
Hmm.
So he was picking up other air wings to qualify, keeping us out to sea longer, even though we were in between deployments. And um, the guy lost his head. They put him in black trash bags in the berthing below our berthing, in the freezer below our berthing,
Hmm.
and we stayed out to sea for another 5 or 6 days
Are you
to
serious?
finish qualifying the air wing.
That's
Yeah, there
insane.
was we almost had riots. Like there, people were like on the verge of rioting on the ship.
I mean, understandably so.
Yeah, the guy's girlfriend saw the whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
It was pretty wild. It's like there's tragedy and stuff, and there's
Right.
always risk.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Doing dangerous things like that. But we were qualifying an air wing that could have qualified in their own ship.
Right.
And we
Right.
don't know the specifics on why they were qualifying with us, but and that's the thing that we didn't know. We were like, so why are we doing this? We need to go home. We're uh, you know, a few miles outside of Florida. Like we could pull right into Mayport, you know, get his body to his family,
Right.
something. This
Right.
guy doesn't need to be in the freezer for 6 days
Right. Right.
waiting on us to pull back into port. Like if we were on deployment, that's a different story,
Right.
right? It's like acceptable trauma, I guess. And so everyone on the ship just it was not
They had
fun for that
enough.
week. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's tough.
that captain did end up making admiral, so I
In
guess it
spite of
worked
all
for
that.
him. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
crazy.
But
So what happened whenever you got out of the Navy?
so I got out in 2014,
Hmm.
and I really tried to go the corporate route,
Okay.
but didn't really work out for me.
Okay.
So I tried. My brother and I were going to buy a gym in town. Um, the owner of that gym actually never really wanted to sell to me. He wanted to sell to my brother because my brother was his general manager,
Hmm.
and he knew him. He didn't know me,
Okay.
um, so that never would have worked out. And it's a good thing because he cooked his books and made it seem like it was super successful. Meanwhile, he was selling drugs on the side and padding,
Like out the
and
gym?
yeah, he was washing his money through the gym.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, that is
um,
wild.
yeah, um, but I worked for him for a little bit when I
Mhm.
got out, and then he moved me to another gym because he had multiple gyms,
Yeah.
and so he increased my drive time and decreased my hours. I actually couldn't afford to even work for him. It
Mm.
was too much too much money to drive out to where he had me working and back home for
Mhm.
the small
For the
amount of
pay.
hours that I was working and the
Yeah.
pay. So I quit and I was unemployed for 3 months and tried to get unemployment and they were like, yeah, we'll give you, I think it was like $50 a week for unemployment.
What are you supposed to do with that?
Yeah, and I had to prove that I was job searching, the
Mhm.
whole rigmaroles. But I was like, no, I did 8 years in the Navy, and you're gonna
Yeah.
offer me that? And I was like, there's no way. I'm not doing that. So I had a really, really awesome roommate that made sure that rent was paid while
Thank
I was
God.
trying to find a, yeah. And I went and Um, I just knew someone, and they had
Hmm.
a job opening maintenance at Continental Tevis, which they
Hmm.
made brake calipers. Got a
Hmm.
job there, and um, have you've been unemployed or you've been in a period of time where you weren't able to work, right? No,
A little bit, not three
yeah,
months.
yeah, okay. Well, 3 months, it's hard to come back from that.
Oh, I'm
And
sure.
so I had a job that was paying me, but I couldn't afford the truck that I was driving.
Mm.
And it got impounded or not impounded, but it got
Repoed.
towed, repoed.
Yeah.
I had to get it back and then sell it because I couldn't afford it.
Dang.
That was a really nice truck that I had.
Yeah.
But it was a 2010 Dodge diesel that I had jacked up on 37s and put a tuner on it, and
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. But I couldn't afford it, and it got
Yeah.
repoed, and that was rock bottom for me. I felt.
Yeah.
But then I got picked up to work for Pike Engineering.
Right.
So I was picked up as a non-degree tech non-degree engineering tech. So
Okay.
I got to do all the work that engineers that are degreed get to do, but I got paid less. And
Oh, that's
so
great. Don't you love that?
yeah, um, so I did that working with, I was in-house with Duke. I worked with new services for
Hmm.
commercial and residential.
Hmm.
Got to kind of work hand in hand with the crews. We building these jobs and getting new services to people that were either building a house or putting up commercial property. So I got to put some of my electrical background, from
Yeah.
the Navy into work there. But I was never part of the good old buddy group.
Yeah.
Like there was really, really good people there, but none of
Hmm.
the people that could get me hired.
Right.
The management just for some reason just kept on looking over me. I got interview after interview after interview,
Hmm.
and I would come to them after and be like, what can I do?
Right. What do I need to do? Yeah.
I really want to get hired onto Duke. Like I'm making $20 an hour doing jobs next to a guy that makes 100,000 plus a year
That's
and
tough.
basically doing the same job. And I'm
Right.
like, and I've got one of the biggest areas, the I have the second most amount of orders on a weekly
Hmm.
basis. And I was regularly getting reviews from customers that were tens. So
Yeah.
1 to 10 scale, how was your interaction with Ian McKay? And I was getting 10 after 10 after 10 after 10. And every Monday morning, they'd have to announce the tens that they got in. And I were like, all right, another one for Ian.
And
And
you're the only $20 an hour guy, and
I'm
everybody else is making bank.
hire me,
Yeah.
And I I know I didn't interview well. That was part of it, but I don't know. That all that saying, still butthurt about it a little bit, but um, things happen for a reason.
Right. It seems to have worked
And
out. Yeah.
there was a couple things that happened in the Navy. I got in trouble a couple times that kept me from
Really?
advancing. Oh yeah, yeah. I was.
Do tell. Come on. We need to hear that.
uh, how much time you got?
Oh, we got plenty of time. Take your
Yeah.
time.
Um, so the first time, none of this was really even cool. None of it, like, none of the me getting in trouble was cool. It
Okay.
was stupid.
Yeah.
The first time I got uh, UCMJ'd, um, I went straight to the captain. So typically you go through a process where you go to DRB, which is in front of the chiefs, and then you go to
Okay.
XOI, which is
Okay.
in front of the XO, and then you go to the captain. And each one is supposed to be a level that they either say yes or no.
Right.
And yes, you pass on to the XO. No, this is plenty of punishment,
Hmm.
or you shouldn't be punished for this.
Right.
We bypassed the DRB, we bypassed XOI, went straight to the captain.
Why?
Um, so in the nuclear program, again, they are trying, even beyond school, they're trying everything they can to kick you out. So
Right.
the whole time they're testing you every single month, they're testing you on information that you've been taught throughout that month, and then random information that you're just supposed to know. You have to pass those on a regular every month.
Hmm.
And then they have maintenance that has to be done, planned maintenance schedule, the PMS that's
Hmm.
weekly and monthly and annual, quarterly, annual, all that.
Right.
So every week at the end of the week, we would meet with our work center supervisor
Hmm.
and we would go over the maintenance that we did that week and we would talk about the maintenance that we were doing next week. And then we'd get sent home for the weekend
Right.
unless we had duty, and then we would stay there. So this particular time we were in the shipyard, and I was trying to move up. So um, I kind of weaseled my way into this position that I was writing these danger tags for all of the plant maintenance.
Okay.
And I knew that if I kind of got into that role, then that could help me move up to another position, which would help
Right.
me rank up. Um, so I wasn't in the plant as much to do the maintenance. But for some reason, I think because of my rank, I was assigned maintenance because I didn't have anybody else to assign it to. And so there's some maintenances that have levels that they have to be assigned to a higher level. They
Okay.
can't just be assigned to an E3 that, I was an E5 at the time.
Hmm.
And assigned to me, but they knew I wasn't down there working because I say down, I wasn't in the plant, which is the sub levels. I
Right.
was up in the hangar bay. They actually move trailers onto the hangar bay during the shipyard periods, and that's where you got computers and stuff in.
Hmm.
And so I was up there working with my one of my good friends, Conky was his last name, and we were doing all the danger tags out for the entire plant.
Hmm.
So I didn't have time to do the maintenance that was assigned to me. So they just had someone else do it.
Right.
Well,
Which makes sense.
right, that makes sense. The problem was, and this is where they had the problem, was uh, Nicola did the maintenance, and the work center supervisor told me to sign for the maintenance.
Oh, to sign like you did it.
Right.
Oh
And
boy.
that's how they understood it. That's not how it was presented to me.
Right.
My work center supervisor, the supervisor,
Right.
said, "Hey, this maintenance was done this week. I had 4 items. There was two that was done. There was two that had to be moved forward because they were some crazy like 500 plus man hour jobs.
Hmm.
The two that got done were real simple jobs, and like I remember the job, I remember what was entailed to it, everything to this day. I remember the two
Of
two
course you
jobs that
do.
got the two jobs that got moved forward that we couldn't finish.
Right.
And so everything you could tell about the job, it had fresh grease on it. It looked clean. Um, the part that they hemmed me up on was not something I could visibly check.
Right.
I would have had to gone outside of that plant or outside of that the engine room into the reactor room and go ask permission to get into the reactor control room and see the logbook for the danger tags to see if he had done the steps,
Right.
the secondary steps that he didn't do. And so I signed for it, and I got sent straight to the captain for that.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
I bet that's the last time you did that.
yeah, it was. And my work center supervisor did not stand up for me and
Even though he told you to
lied through
sign.
his teeth the whole time. Yep.
Yeah, that's not cool.
So I was a second class, a week away from taking the first class. That's the E6,
Hmm.
E6 exam. Um, and that particular exam, if you passed it, you would have advanced.
Hmm.
And I was all of the tests that I was taking, I was scoring in the 94 to 98 percentile.
That's cool.
And I would have passed it. I would have advanced to first class petty
Right.
officer, and I probably would have stayed in 20 years.
Mm.
But like I said, everything happens for a reason, and I
Yeah.
don't think I would have met my wife. I don't think I would have opened this gym.
Hmm.
I don't think I'd be where I am today if I had not gone up to see the captain
Yeah.
and punished. So I got 30 days of restriction, and they reduced me in rank from E5 to E4,
Mm.
and they allowed me to keep my NEC, which is my
Hmm.
rate my secret what is it? My clearance level.
Gotcha.
So my NEC rating meant that I was a nuke and I could do nuke things,
Hmm.
but advancement from E4 to E5 was less than 7% for the rest of the time that I was in the Navy.
Damn.
So the only people that were advancing were the ones that were had taken the test several times and gotten the points stacked up
Mhm.
from taking them. There's points that you get for passing and not advancing.
Right.
So I never made it back up to E5.
Hmm.
And Obama period, he had created the higher tenure, and so it was trying to downsize the military.
Hmm.
So I was pushed out of the Navy for higher
Hmm.
tenure at
It's
8 years.
interesting that I know in the beginning of this interview you talked about the doors closing and the doors opening. And after you said that part of or those few parts of your story, it makes more sense because while you were in the Navy, something unjust, like let's just call it what it is, happened.
Yeah,
I mean, you did something wrong too. Like you signed knowing that you didn't do the work
right.
and you didn't check. So I get it. Like that was your part in it. But if if the guy that told you to sign had owned up to it, then maybe you wouldn't have gotten in trouble, or maybe the trouble wouldn't have been as severe, or maybe it would have been. I
Yeah,
don't know. Who knows?
I've been slapped on the wrist.
Right.
Um,
But um that door closed, and then when you got out and you went through that rough patch, all of the doors that got closed with Duke Energy, because you could have got hired on with Duke and who knows where you would have ended up. And
yep,
all of those things lined up led you to open this gym. And then when this storm happened, led you to be able to help people all across North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, et cetera, et cetera. It's crazy. And it reminds me of something that Steve Jobs said before he died, obviously. He said that
yeah,
we can't connect the dots looking forward. We can only connect them looking back.
mm,
So
yep.
it's cool that I mean, I bet in the moment it was not cool when you were going through
No, it
all of that.
never is.
Yeah,
No,
no,
no.
no. Like you were probably furious, but now, and it's cool that you have reflected enough to be able to understand those things, and you can look back and be like, well, if that wouldn't have happened, then I wouldn't have met my wife, which means you wouldn't
Hmm.
have your kids, you wouldn't have your gym, you wouldn't be on the show right now, and the list goes
Yep.
on and on. Those pivotal
This is
moments are
this is peak right
fascinating.
here.
Oh, is that what it is? It's
Being on your podcast. This is everything lined up. Peak
everything lined up
level.
for this moment.
Joe Rogan, you can shove it.
No, I mean that's really cool. And it's even though we have these revelations, like we understand this looking back, the next time stuff gets hard, like right now with you renovating that gym and
Yeah.
you being an entrepreneur in general, because I know you got big show promotions and the gym and whatever other projects you're working on. I know that there's still moments because I struggle with this time and time again. I've seen, okay, this didn't work out, but it still worked out better than I could have imagined.
Hmm.
However, I guess it's human nature when things seem like they're falling apart, it's hard not to think, man, is this going to be it? Like, is everything going to be over? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just interesting that you have that understanding that those doors closed, and maybe you didn't get the win that you wanted, but you got a lesson. So I think that's really
Hmm.
cool, bro.
Yeah.
But go ahead
Well,
with your story.
I'm gonna tell you, there's some things that okay, so I'm gonna preface this a little bit.
Okay.
Um, I've found as an entrepreneur, as someone that's out there in public
Hmm.
eye,
Hmm.
when you're going through hell, you can't talk about it
Right.
because people will distance themselves from you,
Right.
right? It's only when you've gotten past it and you're successful that it
Yeah.
becomes this like, oh wow, wait, you were hurting that bad
The
during
whole
that time?
time? Yeah.
Whoa, like I have
Right.
so much respect for you. And it's like, yeah, if I had told you then, you would
Yeah,
have
yeah,
closed the
you'd have
door
ran
on
away.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So man, there's a whole lot of stuff going on right now that like we'll talk about this in a
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
when I can actually, it's top secret right now.
Right, right, right.
But it's crazy how things are happening and the um just the stepping stones that are being laid out for me right
Mhm,
now as I'm moving through this process. I was looking for another space last year. I
mhm,
was.
mhm.
I knew that I did not want to stay in this location past 5 years.
Right.
And we're actually recording this during my last month of my initial term.
Okay.
Um, so last year I knew this was coming.
Hmm.
And so I started that process of looking. I had Ari helping me look
Hmm.
for buildings, and a really cool building showed up, and then the
Hmm.
hurricane showed up, and then that
Hmm.
building was off the market
Yeah.
because they got occupied by FEMA. And
Hmm.
honestly, we probably would have moved into that place by now if FEMA hadn't
Really
occupied. But
interesting.
it was not as cool of a spot as what we're getting.
I was gonna say, like, the new spot is
Um,
central downtown. I
yeah,
don't know if you could get a better place than that.
we're gonna come in there and I'm just gonna put this out there. Like, this is gonna be like no other gym that anybody have been to.
Hmm.
And on top of that, it's in a really awesome location.
Right.
I would have done the same thing at the other location, but it would not have been this iconic like location.
Right.
And the access to it would have been good, but not that great.
Right.
I've got a huge parking lot.
Huge.
I've got two entrances from Church Street,
Hmm.
and I've got two entrances on Main Street.
Hmm.
And I'm right next door to a very popular beer garden, the
Hmm.
Blue Ridge Beer Garden,
Hmm.
where I mean, I think last Friday night there was cars. They share a parking lot with me. There was
Hmm.
cars from the beer garden all the way up to Main Street and over in front of my building
Yeah, that's a lot.
um, for a Friday night. And so um, while I've got to set boundaries with that because there's going to be a point in time where the members need a place to work out and
Right.
need to be able to park in because I own the whole parking lot.
Right.
Um, they're going to need to be able to park and work out, and there's going to be beer garden people that want to park in there, and they only really technically have 12 spots. So
Mm. Interesting.
uh, there's yeah, it's I'm not looking forward to that. I've started the conversation with them like, hey, look, this is probably coming.
Hmm.
We've got to prepare for this. How do we deal with this? How would
Right.
you like me to deal with cars piling up, for people that are drinking beer and drinking alcohol
As
and
opposed to working out and they're
right,
parking in your parking lot. Right.
right, right. But I also see those as potential customers. So
A hundred
um,
percent.
I'm actually gonna have a put out a or do a mission for a few months. I'm going to put things that look like tickets in people's windshields,
And
but
it's gonna be for the gym.
instead of a ticket, it's going to be a free day pass.
Hey, that is
So
genius. They're
come
gonna be
see us.
walking up to the car pissed, and then they see it. They're like, "Oh, okay,
Exactly. And they're like, hey, just so you know, you parked in my parking lot,
Hmm.
but hey, I'd love to have you in here for a free day pass. Come
Right.
check out, see what we're about.
Yeah, that's
And
brilliant.
then as a member, you can park here no problem. You
Right.
know, you work out, go eat, drink a beer, eat some food. You know, so I think that is probably the best way to handle it because a lot of
Mhm.
those people they don't know. They're
Yeah.
just parking because they see other cars parked.
Right.
And we're going to put signs out that'll
Right.
kind of help a little bit, but I don't know. As a business owner, especially gym owner, people don't read
Mhm.
signs. So um
Hell,
they're
half of the people that come to the gym can't read. I'm just
I
kidding.
know, yeah, right. It's big big dumb gym lifters.
Especially the Marines. Like
You're
you might as
right.
well just put crayons on the
Uh,
cars. You know what
hey,
I'm
if you put
saying?
crayons out there, maybe they might figure it out.
Oh,
They
that
won't
is
have
great.
they won't have to eat at the food truck because they got their
Hey, that's
crayons.
right. All red crayons. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned through the tough times, especially when in entrepreneurship? Because I know a lot of people that watch the show are either aspiring to be entrepreneurs or they're entrepreneurs themselves. So can
Yeah.
you talk to me about that a little?
You'll never make it, and I haven't made it yet. Just preface that. I'm 5 years in. That's as probably I'm at the hardest point. Well, maybe not the hardest. I don't know. It's been pretty hard for 5 years, but you'll never make it if you aren't hard headed.
Mm,
If you don't show up every day believing in what you started, and
mhm.
believing that you have a future with that.
Right,
I call that hard headed. There's belief in there, but there's a whole lot of hard headedness
right.
that um, keeps you going.
Mhm,
You got to show up every day, even if there's days where you don't feel like you're doing anything. You
mhm.
show up. You do
Yeah,
something. You. Some of my most productive days as an entrepreneur are the days where I didn't feel like doing anything and I just started doing things.
yeah. Sounds like
And
working
I've
out.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, just show up. Consistency is key.
facts.
Consistency is everything. And you're never gonna know how to do everything.
Mm,
Um, and that's when you research. You've got Google at your fingertips.
right,
Um, you've got people in the community that, start listening. Don't take everything in as advice at
right,
first, but start listening. And the ones that you kind of um, feel like you can trust, start diving into what they're talking about and
right.
try it out. And if it doesn't work for you, that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Your business is not their business.
Right.
And so what works for them may not work for you.
Mhm,
Um, but really just truly having belief and hard-headedness
mhm,
will get you through the hard times. And I couldn't do it without my supportive and loving wife.
mhm.
I never thought I'd ever be in a point where I say that, but you know, like I remember hearing that as a kid. Oh, that's the first time I've ever said that, but it's true.
Yeah,
My wife has supported me from day one.
that's cool.
Not hour one, but day one.
Mhm. Yeah,
Hour one was a different story.
right,
Um,
right.
she was pregnant with our youngest,
Mhm.
and I said, "Babe, I want to start a gym. I'm going to leave my job, my cozy job, and
Yeah.
start a gym, and I'm going to be super successful at it." And she
While
was
she's
like,
pregnant, you said this.
"Yeah." She's like, "You've got to be kidding me." And I was like, "I'm gonna let you sit on that." And um, couple hours went by, same day. She came to
Mhm.
me. She said, "Hey, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right."
That's cool.
And not that I did it right by any means. I've
Right. Yeah,
definitely
who knows what
failed.
right is when you're starting out?
I've failed more times than I've been successful.
That's the
And
key. I'm
yeah,
sorry to cut you off, but to me,
no,
that's
it's
the key.
okay.
Like I believe we fail our way to success.
Yeah,
And it's not to me, the failure in and of itself isn't all that important, but every time we fail, at least we attempted. And for whatever reason, if we didn't keep going on that route with that dream, that particular thing that we wanted to do, at least we didn't live or we won't live with the thinking, well, what if I had stuck with it? And I remember a quote, I don't remember exactly who said it. I want to say it was Einstein or maybe Edison, but it goes something along the lines of success is going from failure to failure without losing any enthusiasm.
Mm,
And I've found I found that to be true in my life
yeah.
because, and one day you and I'll sit down, hell, we might do it recorded, but we'll talk about all the things that we attempted and failed and the money that was attached to it. And
Hmm.
honestly, in the moment, it sucks and it hurts, but I
Yeah.
don't regret it because I learned something every time that I failed
Yeah.
and I'm no longer
That's
risk averse.
that's the key is what did you learn from that failure?
Hmm.
Because every failure provides probably the most amount of learning that you can possibly achieve from anything you do in life is
And you're
through
paying
failure.
attention. Yeah,
Yep. 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 Pain makes you pay attention.
that's a
I'm actually
fact.
the back of my knee right now is hurts right now.
So you're paying
I'm
attention.
paying attention to my hamstrings tight. I did I did some uh hamstring stuff yesterday. So I took the 45-degree hip extension,
Hmm.
and I did this the other day, and it felt amazing. But then maybe I'm just not fully recovered. But I
Yeah.
did where I go single leg with it,
Hmm.
and so I pull one leg out of the leg support, and I let that leg kind of pull up as I'm hinging in,
Yeah.
and so you're isolating one hamstring and one side of your
Yeah.
hip, and my left hamstring's
Yeah.
just not happy about that. Sorry.
It'll get better.
So
No, it'll get better.
yeah, but yeah, it's you miss 100% of the shots you don't take,
That's a fact.
um, and so you don't want a shotgun effect, but
Right.
you've got to put stuff out there with enough preparation and effort that you know it sticks.
Right.
And of course, not everything sticks, but you've got that preparation leading up to it that you learn from. And then if it doesn't stick, you learn from, well, why didn't it stick? What is the data
Right.
that you can uh, uh, glean from that not working, that you can take and change things up for the next time? Same
Right.
thing with marketing. It's, you put something out there and it flops. You're like, well, that flopped. Let me try something else. Well,
Right.
you should take the data from why that flopped, and put it into the next
Right.
operation that you take with marketing, and that'll help that one move up.
Right.
Um,
I like to think about it in terms of sports too. Imagine playing baseball and swinging at a ball and missing. If you're stuck on, I just swung and I missed, you're not paying attention to the next one. It's not a good
mhm.
time to swing. Because if you're
Yeah,
not paying attention, you're definitely going to miss. Or
yeah,
basketball, if you take 4 or 5 shots and you miss them all, you got to shake it off and keep shooting. And then you see one go down, then another one
yeah,
go down. Now you're in the zone. And next thing you know, those 4 shots that you missed in the beginning aren't really that relevant anymore. And I don't remember who it was that said it, but maybe Steve Harvey. He said, you just need one to stick and it'll
yeah,
change everything. So why not go into it as if everyone is the one and
hmm,
understand if it doesn't, then it doesn't mean that I'm a failure necessarily. It just means there's something that I can improve upon and do better or different. Or maybe this just isn't the field that I want to be in. Maybe there's something that I didn't know when I got into this field and now I do know. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to have had, I'm grateful to have had an opportunity to try, but maybe I prefer this over here and I want to try this. Um,
hmm.
so when does the gym open, the new location? Do you have a date yet?
Don't have a date yet.
Okay.
I'm projecting end of July.
Okay.
But
So peak summer.
yeah, we're kind of in a weird spot right now where with the size of the building required us to get an engineering stamp drawing.
Mhm.
So the architect and the engineer have been working on that, and I'm in the process of finding out or placing on a map where I want all my lights, all my outlets and lights in the new space. So that's
That's a
fun.
lot.
So today
Yeah, that's a lot.
I've been researching LED lights.
Hmm.
I initially it was like I'm going to do hexagon lights, and then I see that a million gyms in the world have hexagon lights, and I am not one to do the same thing as everybody else. I've always gone against the grain,
Mhm.
and so I need to do something different. And
Right.
while but I also learned from that too, and I feel like um, it's a cool look and people can enjoy that look, but I don't have to do hexagon lights. I can do a different style. So
Right.
I found a different style that I'm like, all right, this is what I'm going to do.
That's the one.
And
Okay.
yeah, and you know, the hard part is like you can want these type of lights all you want, but I have to find the wattage and I've got to find the voltage and the lumens or everything associated with that LED light to put into the electrical side of things so that they can determine if the service can handle what
Right.
we're adding in.
Yeah,
So
that's a
I have
lot.
to find what I want. I have to get those specs to the electrician.
Hmm.
And so it's, you know, it's more than just, oh, that's pretty. I want that, you
Yeah,
know.
and and opening a gym is more than, oh, let's get a couple of benches and let's throw it in
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Okay.
it's interesting because this gym, I I basically GC'd it myself, so I was in charge of getting all the crews in here and doing things ourselves and painting and
Right.
all the nine yards. And so I actually have a GC for this new space.
Hmm.
Um, because I know I missed a lot of opportunities. I missed a lot of things that would have made the gym just a tiny bit nicer.
Hmm.
And so I'm going like full fledged with this space, and we're gonna make this. I mean, and I like I'm looking at what the floor designs are gonna look like. I'm
Hmm.
looking at what kind of doors we're gonna put on the doors, the
Hmm.
handles I'm gonna get special made.
That's cool.
We're you know, I wanted to remove the ceiling and change it with something else, but that is a completely unnecessary amount of money and work.
Hmm.
So we're going to paint the ceilings. We're going to put these cool lights up.
Hmm.
Um, we're going to really change the whole ambiance. I've got a muralist that I'm working with to make
Yeah, that's
really cool
dope.
murals on the walls, and I'm not settling. I think
Yeah.
there's been a lot of times in my life that I've been in a rush because I come up with these last minute ideas, which are really cool ideas, but
Hmm.
then I settle for something because, well, I've got to get it turned around
Right.
to put my something I've learned with social media is patience because I'll make all these different videos and either
Hmm.
I'll edit or I'll have my videographer edit.
Hmm.
And I'm like, as soon as I get it, I'm like, I want to put this out there. It's so cool. It's such a cool video. You know,
Yeah.
you've been watching the videos we've been putting
Oh
out.
yeah. Yeah,
A
they're
lot of
really good.
a lot of those videos were made weeks before we put them out, but we're trying to put it out in a consistent manner.
Yeah.
And and so I have to sit there and like, all right,
Listen, I'm
I
going
got
through
this really
that.
cool video.
Man, I'm going through that right now. So this is the conversation we're having right now is the second conversation that I've recorded today. And I did two yesterday, two the day before. So I'm
Damn.
sitting here, yeah, because I committed to um releasing one every Friday. And then
Yeah.
right before we started this conversation, I'm sitting over here like, should I do like a midweek release also? Should I release two this Friday? And it's crazy that you said that about being patient and sticking to the
Hmm.
plan, sticking to the script and not deviating. And I feel like that's divine confirmation for me to just slow down and be patient
Yeah.
because you never know what'll happen. And I would rather have consistent releases
Yeah.
than get super excited and release one a day. You know what I mean? So I
Hmm.
really appreciate that because just now, before this conversation started, I was going back and forth in my mind and I was this close to
Yeah.
releasing one Friday, one Wednesday, or two on Friday and one Wednesday. So
Yeah.
I appreciate
Can't
that.
do it.
I'm gonna
Can't
slow
do it.
down
Yeah.
and just stick to it.
People will respect your consistency, but
Yeah.
also think of social media as cash in the bank. And so you accrue cash that
Facts.
you have to spend over time, but you don't want to spend it all at once, right? You
Right.
get that uncle that gives you $5, like don't spend it all in one place. Like don't spend all your social media
Yeah.
cash
Yeah.
allowance in one
Yeah.
place.
Absolutely.
Span it out over time, because you know, because the algorithm will pass up on some potentially really good content,
Right.
and people will never see it.
Right. Right.
So you got to play the game, and I'm not even an expert at it. I don't know
Yeah. I
enough.
mean, but you're learning,
I'm
so that's
learning.
all that
Yeah,
matters.
yeah,
Um, all right. So to kind of wrap up, at this point, I usually ask my whoever I'm speaking with the three things, and I started calling them seeds because seeds of
yeah,
greatness, and you plant a seed when you speak, it paints an image in my mind and an idea grows.
yeah.
So I usually ask for three seeds of wisdom that
Oof.
people need to hear, especially people who feel stuck. Now, I feel like you've already given me one with consistency and
Okay.
potentially two with patience about
Yeah,
posting or anything when you're in entrepreneurship and you have these metrics or these goals or dates when you want to be consistent with posting or getting something accomplished. So
hmm,
you can add more if you'd like, but
yeah.
I need at least one more. Like, what is one
Okay.
more thing that you would tell anybody who feels stuck? Maybe they're an entrepreneur, maybe they think that they want to get into entrepreneurship, or just one thing that somebody needs to understand or at least hear that
Yeah.
could really help them out.
Hmm. Oh, I think what I'm going to touch on, and this would have kind of helped me mentally going through everything over the past
Mhm.
few years. Um, when you Okay, I think everybody can be an entrepreneur,
Okay.
or anybody can be an entrepreneur. I don't
Okay.
think everyone is supposed to be an entrepreneur, right?
Understood.
Every individual in this world has a role to play in how
Mhm.
this world works.
Mhm.
And there are some people that their role is to be a janitor. And they
Yeah.
and
No
you
shade to
know
them because things got to get clean.
things got to get clean, and they are impacting people's lives in their
100%.
own way.
Right.
And what and how you impact someone's life and how I impact someone's life is going to be totally different.
Right.
Um,
We could
you
say the
know,
same thing and it not land the same way, depending on who
exactly.
we're talking
Right,
to. Yeah,
right. Your experiences shape how your voice is
exactly.
projected. My experiences affect how my voice is projected.
Right.
And so, um, if you're going to do this thing, you're going to jump into a world of uncertainty, right?
Mhm.
Because starting something from scratch and new, it has a shitload of uncertainty.
Right.
Um, you have to stick to your initial vision. You
Mhm.
have to put on the shades that the horses
The
have, right?
blinders. Yeah.
The blinders, and focus solely on that,
Mhm.
and be a good person to the people around you.
Right.
And if you do that and you're hard-headed enough to get through the valleys,
Because they're coming.
you'll come out on the other side.
That's deep. I like it. I like it. Tell everybody where they can find the gym or where they can find the content.
Yeah. So, Strong Hand Fitness, it's at Strong Hand Fitness on Instagram. We're on, what else are we on? YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Threads, maybe? No.
Mhm.
Yeah, Threads. It all just kind of automatically posts those places. Um,
Okay.
I'm also on LinkedIn, but I hired someone. I haven't even looked at my LinkedIn. And that's another thing. Like, don't just hire anybody to do your social media. And
Mhm.
then if you do hire someone, they will only be as effective as the amount of work you put into them being effective. So
Right.
I have oftentimes put someone out there for social media and I'm like, hands off, you got it. And then I'm like, why does this suck?
Right.
And it's
Yeah,
because
it's your
because
dream. You
it's
have to stay on
it's
top of it.
right. I have to put just as much effort
Hmm.
into that social media team to put out the content that I want to put out and that my people want to see.
Right.
And so since I've hired a social media team, I've worked harder on social media than I ever did before because I just willy-nilly it
Hmm.
before. And so, you know, I can actually see myself in this game of social media now, which is really cool. But
That is cool.
yeah, so all those we're on Google, of course. You Google Stronghand Fitness, we've got over 100 5-star reviews.
Right.
Um, oh, we are on YouTube as well,
Hmm.
so check us out. But if you're local to this area,
Hmm.
we've got a pre-sale going for the new space on our website.
Hmm.
It's the first thing that comes up is when you go to stronghandfitness.com. You can get you save 40% on the registration, and lock in your rate for that new membership, or
Hmm.
just come to our current space, sign up here, and you're grandfathered into the new space. So if we go up on rates, you're still locked into that same rate.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking time out of
Thank
your
you.
busy schedule to
Yeah,
have this
man.
conversation. When's the next powerlifting competition that you guys are putting on?
Ah, oh, what a time to ask that. Um, this
We
Saturday
can,
was supposed to be a powerlifting meet that I had to
yeah.
cancel it
Okay.
and
Well, we can tell them to
refund
keep track
everybody.
of what's going on at the social media.
So, next event has
Hmm.
not been announced yet,
Okay.
but I don't know when you're going to post this
Hmm.
interview. And I imagine it'll be before this, but hopefully it'll be after we announce it because I want
Okay.
that first announcement to go out the way
Yeah,
that
I
I
can
want it
wait.
to go out.
Yeah.
And we should be announcing next week. I gotta hammer out some details
Oh
tomorrow with
yeah,
the
I'm not
beer
posting this
garden.
next week. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay.
we're doing a block party at the new space in
Hmm.
the parking lot in cahoots with the beer garden.
Hmm.
Um, I'm looking to have a live band or two, or a DJ or both. And we're going to have a deadlift competition and we're going to have booths and vendors there. We're going to be there selling
Hmm.
pre-sales and shirts and stuff. And then the beer
Yeah.
garden's going to be open where you're going to be able to go back and forth between the parking lot and the beer garden to get beers and walk around.
Hmm.
Um, it's going to be a really cool time. That's May 31st. I haven't set the times yet. Again, we'll have to work out details with
Right.
the beer garden
And we
themselves.
can put the details in the description as well.
But most likely going to be like 3:30 in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the
Hmm.
afternoon start. We'll do our deadlift competition and then we'll clear that out and we'll get the band up on the platform, overlooking our parking lot,
Hmm.
and have them play on into the night, probably end at around 10 o'clock. But
Yeah.
should be a really good time.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
Everybody check out stronghandfitness.com and check out Ian McKay and the Strongman team on all of your social media platforms. I'll talk to you soon, bro.
Yeah,
Thank you
man.
again.
Appreciate you, buddy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Peace.